Okay, so the impact, each of us is going to talk a little bit about the impact it's had on us personally, because we sort of want to show you a little bit of what's happened for us. Um, I was raised in a religious community, a Christian religious community, and had very little contact with people outside of that world. So, and in that world, sexuality was really repressed. So I grew up with all my sexuality just really repressed. I was afraid to dance when I was in high school. I mean, just to even move my body like that seems somehow sinful. So in midlife, my dad and my two favorite mentors, all three of these men, all kind of died tragically and early. And as I saw why they died, I thought it had a lot to do with the fact that they had not been able to account for their sexuality. So I made a decision that I was going to try and set my life up so they didn't happen to me. I just looked into whatever I was looking into, hoping that I could find out something better than what they had experienced. And I'm monogamous now and have been for over 15 years or something. But a lot of what I learned has to do with needing a place that's safe enough for me to be able to talk about my most vulnerable stuff, which is my sexual stuff. And when I got into this group and we got together and we started talking, boy, things just started opening up. It was so nice to hear, oh, you think that too? Oh, you've got that one too? Oh, great. And just a lot of support came to me. A lot of understanding came to me. It was just really fun. Also, there's a lot of new information out about sexuality, human sexuality, that's just fascinating. So it was just an eye opener, and I think it's important to have that, even if for me, even if I'm in a monogamous relationship, to kind of have someone else to talk to, or some other place to learn about it too, because that just keeps it way fresher in my relationship, keeps the spark there better. And so it's had a huge impact on me, opened a lot of doors.
Thank you, Cliff. Natalie?
Yeah, my journey began with exploring sex when I was really young, and when I think about what my desire was at a really young age, I realized that I was looking for love. I was yearning to be loved, and the way that I saw to fill that void that I thought I had was by having sex. And so that went on for a number of years, and then I met my partner, who's now my husband. We've been together for 20 years, and we got married and have a very loving relationship. We have 3 boys, and there's a lot of love there. So my love hole is full. It's like constantly being nourished by all of these beings in my life. And so what's happened over the years, being in a monogamous relationship with this man, is that my desire to have sex has just been kind of gradually dwindling. And there's this part of me that just doesn't really accept the status quo. It's just not really good enough for me to accept the fact that, yeah, if you have kids, you're going to have sex less, or once you hit 40, you're going to have sex less, or whatever kind of BS statements our society wants us to believe about sex. I just don't buy it. And so I've been like searching and fiercely, on this quest to find out, okay, how can I continue to augment the spark rather than watch it just decline over the years, and just anything I can possibly get my hands on in order to find out what's going on inside of me. Where are my blocks? How can I shift through whatever kind of resistances are inside of me? And doing this kind of work has really opened quite a few doors for me. Having the kinds of conversations that we have here in our circle has helped me. It's just been a really good mirror for me. I've been able to look at myself really honestly and say, that's an area that needs a little bit of work. I'm a work in progress. And I've been loving all parts of this journey. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Natalie. Bridget?
So I identify as queer or bisexual, and I was extremely adventurous in my 20s. And I came away somehow with this idea that I could not be, this kind of wild, adventurous, sexy person and have a long-term, loving, committed relationship, that they were really mutually exclusive. And now I'm married. Yeah. This guy. And we have an open relationship. It has a BDSM component. So certainly it's not necessarily your standard loving, committed relationship, but it is a loving and committed relationship. And yet I still struggle. I really struggle with my decision to be in an open relationship. I struggle with feeling like I'm worthwhile, like I'm worthy of being chosen, of being married. And when Cliff invited me to be a part of these discussion circles, I was really excited because it was an opportunity for me to be in a space where I could be really raw and open and authentic and express what was really going on, all of my frustration and everything, in a space where I could be held and supported and where I wasn't going to hurt him, because we were in separate groups. And this was a huge gift for me, to be able to just be really raw, and not worry that what I was going to say was going to touch on his wounds, which, we've only been married a few months, but we've known each other 30 years. I know where his wounds are. and I don't want to be touching on them. So to be able to talk about this stuff in this raw way was a huge gift. And it has allowed us to be a lot more frank with each other, and to do a lot more really fun stuff in our relationship. It's had a huge positive impact. And again, I look forward to the opportunity to share some of that with you.
Thanks, Bridget. Heidi?
If I could choose a couple of words that summed up my beginning with sexuality, it would probably be intense curiosity and paralyzing fear. I always had this sort of Pandora's box relationship with sexuality. I grew up in a place where you don't talk about it, you don't touch, you don't look. And some of the core wounds that I uncovered in myself through the shadow work was this really deep subconscious messaging that I've been carrying that says, I'm doing it wrong, I'm bad, or I'm not good enough. And these messages overlaid so perfectly over my sexuality. And I realized I've been carrying these messages, and they've been a filter through which my sexuality was taking place. And to throw it into the pot, I had some family members who were in this kind of complete denial of the existence of sexual energy, whose lives were being really torn apart as a result of this. And so for me, it's always been this push-pull relationship. Like, I'm being told this doesn't exist, and yet I'm feeling these immense currents of power from this energy. And having had this intuition this whole time that there was something really significant, something really sacred about sexuality. But then carrying all of this confusion, like this thing inside me that is afraid I'm doing it wrong, has taken me to so many places. I'm too horny. I'm not horny enough. I'm too masculine. I'm too feminine. My sexual energy is leaking. And there's just no end of ways that you can pick yourself apart and criticize yourself, especially in this realm where we don't often have the luxury of just putting all our cards on the table and looking through them in a clear way. So when I joined the Eros work group, it was amazing to have the ability to do that, to just put down all my cards, all my fears, all my experiences, and be shocked that I wasn't such a freak, that these people not only understood, but many of you in our group said, yeah, I've had that too, or this is why it's happening. And so I've seen through the different sexual brains, through the different archetypes that we work with, how really what I was doing this whole time was transitioning through these different pieces of me. And each one of them was like this new part of myself that I got to uncover and integrate. And so it's led to this real sense of sexual fullness. You know, seeing sexuality go from a very one-dimensional place, like, yeah, sexuality means either I'm thinking about sex or having sex, right? To, whoa, this is actually a multi-dimensional thing, like being able to witness in my conscious mind the way that I use my sexuality in work, how sexuality shows up in friendships, and you know how I can show up in so many different ways in sexual encounters. So there's a real sense of healing and fullness that's personally come for me, and I really want to share that with as many people as I can.
Wow, listen to those stories. And for me, this is probably the most complex issue that I have. Like many of the other stories, I started my sexual education in a place of absolute denial, dismissal, and in a complex world, because I was on a farm where all the animals were having sex. So the animals had sex and had babies, but the people didn't have sex, or they didn't talk about having had sex. And so the confusion that that generated for me was just amazingly incredible. And I even remember when I internally knew that I was bisexual, and how I also internally knew that that was not a subject that I could bring to the table and talk about in any way with anyone, except it would be a total excommunication of me in many ways, that I would have been totally rejected and been demeaned for the rest of my life. So I learned in many ways how to hide those parts of me. And in learning how to hide, it took me into becoming, you know, a world-class athlete, because athletes are so virile and they're so strong and they're so masculine and they're all of that. And but it took me outside of myself. It took me into worlds in which deceit and secrecy and lies were just the way the world worked for me. And my sexuality and all of that was you know, raging, and you know, took me to many different places with many different partners. And all of that was held in secrecy for most of my life. Only the partner that I was with probably knew what was going on, and the rest of them had no clue. And how I learned to use that to my advantage, I mean, I didn't, until I did start doing this work, I couldn't see how I was using all of those things to an advantage as much as I could, and at the same time being in denial. And this work has helped me sort of get out of denial. It's helped me find what are my real drives, what are the things that really turn me on, what are the things that turn me off, and how do I navigate that world with the rest of my life? Because, you know, for many years, sex really controlled a lot of my life. And now I get the opportunity to look at those things without shame, without blame, and to see the impact that it's having on me, to try to find ways to talk to my partner of 15 years about sex in a completely different way. And it really has given me the opportunity to become more conscious and more aware. If I don't deal with this energy, as Heidi likes to put it, that's inside of me, then it will control me. And I don't want it to control me. I want it to be a part of me that I can love and experience and express.
Thank you, Judge. So my story, I feel like I showed up in the world as this little kid who just wanted to love and be loved. Her stories about me being like a 2-year-old and like climbing from lap to lap to lap and just trying to snuggle with anybody and everybody would let me. There's this little kid who just had this bursting energy in him, showed up in this world where that was not wanted, that was not welcome, that was not acceptable. And I got the message really strong and really hard that to keep that stuff hidden, because nobody wants it. And so I learned if I wanted any kind of touch or tenderness or access to sexuality or relationship, then I had to figure out exactly what my partner wanted and offer only that to become whatever it was that they were wanting. And my desire for sex and touch and connection was so great that I got really, really good at it. I became a really great partner, and I was able to connect with a lot of wonderful people, but I never showed them who I really was. I always had the mask on. I never told them what I really wanted or where I was really coming from. Because the belief was if they actually knew, they'd be horrified. They'd be disgusted. If I wanted something they didn't want, they had to squash what I was wanting so that it wouldn't make them uncomfortable. And I got to where I always ended up feeling unseen and unwanted and unloved. And after having sex, I often felt like a dildo, like I was just being used for their pleasure. And it was much later in life where I finally got fed up with that and said, you know, I'm not willing to do that anymore. I'm not willing to hide. It was almost like I was put myself in a cage to protect other people from me. And like you put a tiger in a cage long enough, eventually the tiger's scared to leave the cage. I was terrified to leave the cage, to tell people about who I really am. And it's through Eros work where I was able to really claim and speak about and start to enjoy all aspects of my sexuality. The part of me that is interested in men, the part of me that wants to be dominant, the part of me that wants to be submissive, the part of me that's super sappy and sweet and just wants to cuddle and watch Disney movies, all that kind of stuff, really owning it. And it was scary to talk to my partner about that. And it brought up a lot of our stuff. And being able to then go and take that struggle back to the group and get the unconditional support that it's really hard for a partner to give one another kind of healed both of us bit by bit until we could really start celebrating each other for who we are and celebrating the desire, even if we choose not to act on the desire. And gave us the trust in one another to start experimenting and doing stuff we hadn't done before and enjoying some of it and not enjoying some of it and that being okay. And I really want that for everybody. I want everybody to have a chance to identify and claim and celebrate all of who they are and have a space where they can go and talk to other people about it, where they're going to be cheered on and supported and not shamed and not blamed and not made wrong and not told they shouldn't want what they want or do what they do. And I think the world would be a much, much better place if more of us had an opportunity to do that. I think a lot of ugly stuff that goes on in the world happens because we're so frustrated we can't be loved for who we are.
Thank you, Giles.